will settle in, whether in academics, in serving human beings, or in serving God. And the church will also, at the end of the day, want to present a faithful young person to the community and to God. By the time that young person crosses all this period of ministry, of teaching, and becoming an adult, the person will have to go through nothing but to have what we call faithfulness of Christ. Faithfulness to the service you render to humanity, faithfulness to the service you render to God. In every aspect of it, when faithfulness is achieved as part of the teaching ministry, the rest of the work that will be left will be easy to achieve. Brethren in Christ, on this note, I'm reading from this. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 16. I will jump a word. All scriptures is God's breath and is useful for teaching. The rest I jumped there because we are talking about teaching, so that the man of God may be thoroughly equipped for every good work. That is why I say that the good work you would do is that you are going to serve God and humanity. Apart from that, there is no any other work. The church is confronted with this as a teaching ministry. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verses 2. And the things you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, entrusts to reliable men, in this case, reliable young persons, who will be qualified to teach other young people. So that is the teaching ministry of the church, and that is the responsibility of the young people. God bless us all. Amen.
God bless you, Reverend Steve Addo. Please, you may take your seat right by our chairman, Uncle Moore. Yes, right there. Or we can do it better for Reverend Stephen Addo. So instead of making today a one-man show, we've decided to spread the conversation among a number of stakeholders who are with the church. So please help me while I get to mention our panelists for tonight, but I want to say a very big thank you to the Men's Fellowship, yes, who have had to cut their meetings short, and Women's Fellowship, who didn't even meet at all, yes, to join us tonight. Let's appreciate our fathers and mothers. Yes, but I would like for us to have one more chair. I think we can pick any of these into the far corner over there. Yes. While I call on our Superintendent Minister, Very Reverend Apia Champon, to join us as well. Please let's appreciate him with a huge round of applause. And as you can see, Daddy really came prepared with files and other notebooks, so please, we know we are not short of knowledge tonight. Daddy, thank you for joining us. Also, I would love to call on our newest and finest evangelist. Yes, yes. Please, Uncle Eugene, Taylor Sampson, please join us. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. The ever-ready Eugene. Amazing. Thank you. And there's one person who is key to driving this conversation, Eugene's own daughter, who will represent the youth. Shall we have Elsie join us, please? Brahima, can you help me take some microphones to them? I would moderate from here, so yes, that's how the conversation is going to go. And thank you, gentlemen and lady, for joining us. You'd have microphones so that you can speak to the subject as we go on. I think Reverend Stephen Addo has done an amazing job telling us what intensifying our teaching ministry towards disciple making and the young person in focus, and that we have to do this bearing in mind the needs of the young person. Yeah, so that good tone to start us up. But Reverend Stephen Addo, I would say that the first question from me goes to you. Now, while we go on in the next 10 minutes, we would open the channel so that you can ask some questions as well. And I'm hoping that the young persons will have good enough questions to ask. And if you want to ask a question, please use the microphone stand over there. I think, yes, we can have another microphone on there just for some questions as well. So that is the way to go. Are we ready? Oh, are we ready? Good. So, Reverend Stephen Addo, let's just talk about some of the needs of the young person. I want to go straight to the point. That maybe some young people want to have a little bit more of dancing in the church. But this is the case where we are Methodists, so we are very, straight to the point according to a plan. How are we bridging that and making sure that the new wind that is blowing with charismatism and apostolicism, which has been pretty much our headache as a church, taking away our youth today, and probably per a certain estimate of a source I would not disclose, would have said that in the year 2050, the Methodist Church probably would not have any young people in there. And how are we addressing this? Yes.
Thank you. So that's neat, that young people are very energetic and want to always show that energy. Also falls where the adults or those giving the teaching also has a responsibility to look at how all things are done at their own times. So the young person is allowed to dance, but then to also know that other things are of concern. So you dance, and then there is limitation to how long you should dance, because when you are energetic and you are doing it over and over, that means that you are also taking the time of another thing. As part of the things that the church teaches us, is unconsciously issues of time management. And those are the things that often than not young people would want to break, because you are either playing football when you are very young, and your mommy will tell you that it's getting late, stop and come and bath and go to church, or we are going to sleep, and you keep playing until you are not even seeing the post any longer. That is when you realize that it is dark. But for mommy, it is too late to come and bath at the time. It's dangerous. But when we are going through situations like this, where adults are there to regulate what is being done, if we don't give chance for praise and adoration, where young people will have a lot of dancing or dance, then there is a problem. But where there is the chance for it, we are told that we should be able to express ourselves in the presence of God. But there are other things that are equally important as part of the service, so that when we are able to balance it like that, it will not be just one-sided life, because as you grow, you realize that it's not only one thing, but there are other things that will be able to mix up with life to make life very complete.
I think Sophie Payne has something to say.
Yes, when we came here 2.5 years ago, we had people complaining that I have one soul. We do not want to please people outside, because we had a visitor from Mampong who came and said, because it was different where they were. Then only yesterday, we had these visitors from the US. They came and they were happy with the dancing. I know that it has changed from when 3 years back, or people would tell us 4 or 5 years back, it was difficult to express yourself the way we now do. So I know that it is improving, but we can still do better. Then add what Sofo Ado said, the balance, trying to keep the time. So if you do not get it all, it means if you do more praises, and it reduces the time for the sermon and so on. So we try to balance. Thank you. So if it's on course.
All right. So if it's improving, and I think it's a good observation, we can put our hands together for that. If it's improving, yes, I agree. Yes, I agree that it has improved. But let me quickly go to Elsie. From your standpoint as a young person, maybe you can throw more light on about 1 or 2 challenges that the youth have when it comes to the teaching ministry. Often the time this year we've done a lot of teaching according to the theme of the church, but sometimes I've heard the youth complain about teaching that is not astute, that is not up to standard. Okay, we've heard some rumors, if I should put it that way, that we've heard some things that were taught in the church, taught at Bible class, but have not been exactly biblical. Also to say that it means that the young people know the Bible, so they know what's going on. Yes, but what are some of the challenges when it comes to the teaching ministry, but more importantly with the young person in focus? Yes.
I think one of the challenges would be actually, I think now it's different in Emmanuel, but before it might have been having your voice heard.
Okay.
Because I'm not in leaders meeting, but I've heard some of the challenges there. Maybe young people are reluctant to speak up because of being maybe shut down or not listened to. But I'm sure it's changing now because our reverend ministers are accessible. They're accessible. I know other leaders in the leaders meeting who are also very accessible. Even if you feel shy to approach someone directly, there are always elderly people in the church you can talk to, you can make your spokesperson. So I think it's getting better.
Let me crack you down on everybody's saying it's getting better. Do you love the service? Do you love the church as it is now? If not, what do you want changed? Yes. And this goes out to all of you so we can think around it. Yes, if it's time for us to speak up, we can all do that. Yes, but yes, let's go.
I love the service now. I'm not always, in fact, I don't remember the last time I stayed in the main service throughout because of children's service, but I like it there. And I haven't heard anyone complain about here as a young person. So I don't know, unless any other young person complains, I don't have any.
All right, thank you. Now, from a very lay person point of view, yes, Uncle Huge, this will go out to you. How do you think we can get to that desired state where we can keep our young people in church? Not only as Sunday guests, but young people who are involved in the things of the church.
The church, the future of the church, has always depended on the young people. So my view is that the moment you hit 40, as an adult, as an individual, you have to make sure that you are just slowly, systematically, you are fading out of the system. And therefore, all that you need to do is that you need to encourage the young people to come along with you by the way that you teach them, the way that you handle yourself, your zeal for God. You see, the young people are excellent imitators in whatever that we do. If you are sluggish, if you are up there, you are an elderly person, you're a leader, and then you are sluggish, automatically it's going to have effect on the young person who is looking up to you. If you cannot, like for instance, our theme for the year, if you cannot teach, intensify the teaching, then it means, what is in there for you? How would you be able to teach as an elderly person for you to be able to bring along the young people? You should yourself learn very well. You see, anything that you do, you need to do it, and you do it well, because the God that we serve excels in everything that he does. And therefore, you too, you should be able to excel in everything that you do, so that you can impact the young people. Because in fact, they look at us in every area. Your haircut, down to the soles of your feet. As of it's actually reminding him of the beard.
Oh, the beard is gone. In fact, I was trying to imitate you myself, so that's a good one. Now that yours is gone, maybe I'd advise.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly. And that one was actually for a purpose. And since the event had gone by, there's no need to keep it. Right. Probably I'll keep it after 70 till I go back.
All right then. All right. But let me say that is our teaching with the youth 21st century focused? Mm-hmm. Is it? Is it?
I cannot say it is. I cannot say that. Because the world is very dynamic. So it is with Christianity. I would just look at if Jesus Christ is here with us, and then now You know, in the Methodist Church, before basically pure and Orthodox, we're not clapping our hands, no drums, no dancing. And so that kind of tradition is still inculcated in most of us as elderly people. And I think we need to loosen up, because the world is changing fast. And our teaching ministry, intensifying it, is not only opening the Bible. It is the way that we do things, the way that we carry ourselves, and the way that we move. So we should be able to. The other time I was discussing with somebody, I think one of the leaders, I said it's about time in the Methodist Church we create an atmosphere where we'll be able to get our young people, the youth, know themselves better. Like, for instance, coming out with issues like having a date. And the date that I'm talking about is the godly one, that whereby all the young people, maybe a Saturday, they will just come out and say, oh, we are going out on a date. A sister, a brother, a sister, a brother, probably in a group of about 10 or 12. You see the point? In a group, 10 or whatever, and then we all decide to go somewhere, sit down, chat, get to know ourselves better. You build relationships, and that is what I call godly relationship. There are areas you don't cross boundaries, no bounds. It's a no area. That's why there was a time I said that even hard is appalling. Yeah, because when you come with young people, there are some things that, oh, just shake, minor hug, whatever, no peck, no nothing. And then you make sure that whatever that you are doing, God is watching you. And you do it as Jesus Christ is part of you. You need to see the sister that you've taken out as Jesus' daughter. The sister must see the brother as Jesus' son. And so when we all have that kind of mindset, we will do it. It's workable. We've done it somewhere and it worked extremely well. And that's how I got my wife.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Oh, you can do better. Oh, yes. I think that there's going to be a quick reaction from Sofuado. Yes, and then I'll come to Uncle Moore, and then we can open up to have some contributions from there. Yes.
Yes, another side are changing by the way the young people are taught, where you don't simply sit down to listen. You don't simply sit down to look and then ask questions, but you are given projects to go and then search through. I've been wondering whether we can do that in church for the young people so that they'll be able to learn, where we group ourselves into a character study from the Bible, that we are taking Esther. And we group young people to work on it and then make a presentation on it. While some are looking at her life in the palace, and others are looking at the life of other people, that is her people, also living in Susa, and so that we are able to get the feel of how academic teachings are for people to get involved, where we have group studies, group discussions. As Uncle Eugene rightly said, we are able to bring people together. Sometimes people who are really dating, who have found themselves outside the church. If I say outside the church, there's not a church that has arranged for their dating, but they found themselves and they found interest and they want to date. Where those people come genuinely and they are asked to study the Bible, given topics in a gathering, where we are spending about 1 hour, 2 hours, and you and your person you are dating, you also search through some things. It is a way of teaching, because some young people wouldn't have the chance to know how to interrogate the Bible with themselves, and they grow into married couple, and they are not able to study the Bible together. They don't know how to do it. And so if from time to time we are able to group, if it is in 5, another time we can do it in 2s, male, or female and male, so that you are able to study and you learn how to study a Bible with that level. It will help us to inculcate how we learn from the secular world also into the church, learning the Bible.
Uncle Fred, I know you've penned down a few things, but even before you talk about them, well, I haven't seen them, don't worry. Before we talk about them, I brought you for a good reason. Okay? When it comes to occupation, career, business, for example, okay? The young person in business, in career, also has a role to play in the church. And I would say that Emmanuel is a place where you see a lot of well-to-do adults, right? Praise the Lord for that. How does that affect young people, especially when the growth of our church, for example, where we have to build a new church paradise, yes, and we have adults who are growing, okay, but we need young people also doing well to even support them more, especially when income at a certain level of life begins to decline. But how, as adults, as a church, are we helping to groom people in that channel? For example, wouldn't it be in our best interest if we are also helping in that direction, coupled with the spirituality and teachings of the church to bring young people up?
The short answer would be yes, very, very important. But to expand a little bit, and I think in this church there are many young people here, and there are a lot of them doing well. However, I don't think that the young people, have leveraged enough of the adults in the church. Because after church service, what I see, maybe they do it somewhere else, but most of the time what I see is that the young people congregate on one side and the adults congregate on the other side. Whereas there should be networking. Networking is the buzzword for the 21st century. You did mention something, and I think Osofuado did also say, you asked a question that is the teaching of the church in the 21st century? I would actually change that question and say, is the teaching in the 22nd century? Because if we are doing things now for the 21st century, then we'll be left behind. And if I may just say that, that's the chair. There's a number of comments that have been made that have said improvement has happened. I hope that those who've been here much longer don't think that because of that we are saying everything that happened in the past is bad. Because it's not, it wasn't. I came here a long time ago when I was coming on holidays, and there were some very good things here. That's why I came back. But what we need to do as a church, that we need to continuously improve. Because if we don't, then we'll be left behind. We talk about culture, we talk about tradition. Things has to change. Because if you don't change, you'll be left so far behind. And if you don't believe it, ask Nokia, ask IBM.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, yes. So our panelists have all had a shot at speaking. At this point, I think we can have a microphone for our audience. I think Alfred Solomon has something to say. So shall we all just queue up? Yes, and appreciate him as he comes forth. If you want to have something if you have something to share, please you could just queue up nicely, and then we'll take about 2 to 3 questions at a time, and our panelists will discuss them. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I really like what is going on here, and this question has always been on my mind since I completed school. What is the church's plan, the Methodist Church's plan for young people? I know we have a youth ministries directories. I know we have all the youth groups in line and everything to keep young people. But what is the church doing? Getting opportunity to work with the church, not Emmanuel specifically, but the broader church. It makes me wonder, is the church even planning for young people? Because everything that the church does, there's no inclusion of young people. It's like we are moving as a wave, but as compared to my counterparts in other churches, I'm not doing comparisons here, but I see more inclusion of young people towards the church's aim in other places more than I see in my own church. So I want to find out, probably Emmanuel has a strategic plan for young people specifically. I'm saying this in the context that I've gotten the opportunity to interact with most young people in the church, and most of them always go like, well, there's no problem, we are just moving where you move. We are going where you want us to go. And it's like a blind man leading a fellow blind man. We'll all fall into a ditch one day, but we can't move in a different way that is not in line with the church. So if the church has a vision for young people, that this is where we want our young people to be in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years, this is what we are planning, that at least about 70% of our population or activities must be filled with young people. So I want to know from our panelists, preferably our superintendent minister and our circuit minister, what the church's plan is. And if our other panelists can also maybe advise what they may suggest for the church to do. Thank you.
May I respond immediately? Yes, you ask about what the church is doing. Unfortunately, not everything written is passed on. But the church, apart from the constitution and standing orders, the church has decisions taken at conference. I know that the church decided as a first phase, because it's mainly adults, to have not less than a third of the leaders' meeting being young persons. That is the first stage. The second stage comes through strategic planning. For us in the Northern Accra Diocese, the bishop set up a committee from the Methodist University coming to meet us to draw a strategic plan. It hasn't been unveiled, but inside the strategic plan, provisions made for young people to play leading roles. It's one thing on paper, it's another when it's being interpreted or acted upon by the minister or superintendent minister, in fact by the executive, which includes the circuit stewards and society stewards. So yes, there is a plan to involve as many as possible. We know that we can't suddenly jump to many or more than 2/3 being young people, because the church has grown up with adults, old people in. The other churches grew up with younger people in, so they can, but we will also get there where we involve more the young people. There is provision made for young persons to be involved. When it comes to the concerns of the youth, I was telling the circuit stewards at a meeting that the church said, hey, 3% of the main harvest, 3%, be set aside for entrepreneurial development of young persons, separated from the main church's funds. So some provision has been made, but interpreting it or applying it in the different societies has taken this time. Yes, I can say the church has plans for the young person.
I thought I was going to get a hand clap for that 3% that's been set aside. Yes. Reverend Adu, please.
So that same question as tackled by the superintendent minister, you see that the way the church handles young people is a bit different from the way other churches do. Why am I saying so? Because in the Methodist Church, you are equipped. If you look at our vision and our mission statement, we want to equip people for transformation of the society. And so at every point of the church, and all stages, you are being equipped. And so when the vision of the church or the theme of the church is given for the year, the church at your level has given you that enough allowance so that you work within what you have been given or you have been trained within for a long time. For instance, if you have been in girls' fellowship, when the theme comes for the year, you will whatever you have learned. Also have all systems available that the young people could move through. Because for someone to become a lay preacher It is available for a young person. So that if you want to have the opportunity to get the courage to lead and do other things, there is a system for you to do so. And if the strategic plan of the church at a point in time is to do evangelism, at the young people's level, if you are in the brigade, the girls brigade has how they influence girls for Christ and how the boys also influence boys for Christ. So it will